Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. I'll be fully available in like a minute or two.
Okay,
Computer
sounds
sounds still
good.
being weird.
Okay. Well,
How are you?
pretty good. How are you? How are you doing this week?
Okay. It's been a pretty good week overall. I've made some progress on some different things.
Good.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the abstract for the New York Women in Computing Conference in the Slack channel.
Yeah. That's I'm happy with that mostly because it's starting point for things.
Yeah.
Uh, and a little bit of other stuff. Different setup.
Hi. You're back. All right.
Morning.
Morning. New location there, I see.
Slightly different setup and arranging some stuff
Ah,
here.
oh, good. Welcome to the meeting. If you're watching online, welcome. So today we have a number of things to go over. We have our submissions, which we've been working on pretty, straight away, and there are a lot of deadlines to meet. Um, and we'll talk about some of those abstracts more in depth, things that are coming up soon, and then we'll probably get into some papers after that, and probably go over some administrative stuff before that, and so it should be a pretty busy meeting. So, Jesse, did you have anything to talk about to start us off, or?
I will talk about the ethics, the society and ethics here, women computing abstract at some point today. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Anson will be joining us or not.
Okay.
I have spoken to I've spoken to a few people about it, like this Angela, who has been in the lab and stuff, and she has big fluctuations of being busy and not being busy. So I don't think she'll be here today, but she is sort of on board with that. I've also spoken to Min. I think Min's in the last Slack now, Min, on the tram, and she's she's also um, I don't think she'll be able to make it to this meeting today, but she's on board with things. So that's good. I haven't. My general update are about that. As you know, just to say, I'm starting a micromasters program um, in statistics and data science, which is this is getting a lot of technical background that sort of I think will help me bridge some gaps between. Like I'm still applying to uh, like I'll do some masters in computer science. I would love to do an online masters in computer science, giving us all that freedom while I continue. Like the ultimate goal is still a PhD for me. It's just I'm being, you know, it's funny because some of my friends who are like in other fields and other groups are like, oh, I'm just applying everywhere I possibly can. And it's like I can't really do that. I really can't do that because it's just I don't want to be. I have a very particular way I want to approach, um, what I'm interested in, and it's just I'm okay with being selective and really going a particular way about it, and also like you know, uh, it's a big thing in general, but it's just I have a very different approach. I haven't heard back from uh, the PhD programs that I applied to, but I don't think I got into them.
Yeah.
I have one more thing I'll ask you a letter recommendation for that's due basically at the end of the month. Another program at MIT, which I've applied to before, but it can't hurt to apply there again. But this kind of it's putting myself in the context of being like a student again. I haven't really been a full student, like a serious student where things really matter and things that are affecting like your things that really impact. I haven't been a full student in I can pretty much say over a year now, over a year and a half.
Wow.
And it's a different I'm very okay with it, but it's also like it feels good. I feel like last year, on a personal level, I feel like last year, just the last 10 months of my life has just been this sort of weird. A lot of the great things happen. A lot of the great neuromath stuff happened. The things that happened in the lab over this last year have been really great. I think there's been a lot of positive developments. Like but there's like so much stuff to go with development, AI stuff and the brain organized stuff now too. But just some of the administrative stuff, and I think the lab has been good, and I'm glad to be in a manager position here and all that. But it's just I feel like there's just been a lot of I like the term distraction.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to kind of. I feel very confident about the directions that I have to go in now to sort of keep my own sanity and keep my. There's a lot of choices and a lot of things that come up, and it's like, well, what really matters? Because if you're making a lot of these choices and decisions about things that don't really matter, then it's just like, even in the context of the pandemic life and all that. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a bit of a personal digression, but I feel like I feel like I have a lot of clarity and things that I want to do, and I'm happy. I'm really happy that yes, one of the things I did want to do is related to this submission to the New York Celebration of Women in Computing Conference. Like that's for lack of better terms, important for me. Like I wanted to do. Number one, I like the conference and I'm trying to help them. I have ties with them. But beyond that, I want to have I want to have a consistent activity in this area of, for lack of better terms, AI ethics stuff. Because it does matter to me. It's important, and it's an extremely it's a quagmire of stuff, and there's so many issues related to it. And it's not it's sort of like inherently interdisciplinary and also inherently it's a mess. But I think it's an important mess. So I'm very happy to have that there. I'm not going to turn my full focus to it, but periodically between this conference and the AI Now thing from before, I feel like that's I appreciate being able to do that inside the confines of the lab somewhat, because I don't know, it's such a I find it a very in a similar way, like I'm sure you understand. I know you're familiar with the nature of interdisciplinary stuff. It is like this lab is sort of very technically interdisciplinary lab where it's not unusual to look at. Yeah, okay, fecal worm or biological stuff, and also the heavy computational side at the same time, and it's there's sort of a culture where it's like, hey, it's okay to talk about that, and we may not, this is the reality that, yeah, well, if you're trained in this field, you're not going to get it, and that's okay, and that's sort of, that's a great thing, and it's sort of a similar thing with looking at some of the AI ethics stuff, or general tech ethics or data ethics, because there's such different frameworks and backgrounds to address the problem. So it's sort of like I'm not in a position to. I'm not going to study ethics full time, and I'm not. Like one thing about like why it's great to have Min on the team is she's like an actual training in like social work and things like that. Angela as well. They come from those backgrounds, and a lot of what I try to do with this conference specifically is I've used the New York Celebration of Women Conference basically for the last 3 years as venues to really try to push these interdisciplinary collaborations on important issues in tech, like and like I did some of the my first thing there was a collaboration with Valeria, a colleague and law student in Chile, and she we did like a law perspective and a technical perspective on some basic stuff on AI bias and how it's hard to regulate that. And last year the event was canceled, but it's going to be a collaborative effort on looking at some of the challenges of being a worker in these fields, going in particular directions about how to have a career in these fields, but also how to be aware of for lack of better terms, issues in tech as you're having a career that's related to computing or whatnot. And I think this year is it's kind of still to be shaped, because I think the team is kind of being assembled, but like the vision that I have for what I want to do is, I think I think just in the same way that artificial intelligence, in its most broadest and biggest sense, is a really interesting way to look at how the human mind functions, like even back to Turing and everybody else, and maybe not like Benjio and Lafoon, they talk about it now the same way. It's like, well, we're really computational people, and there are, particular sorts of connections and whatever, but they're trying to understand the mind and how thinking happens. Or like Rich Sutton, in the sense of, intelligence and computation in the most broadest sense possible. It's not just one specific maybe domain. And like that's a really great approach to intellectual stuff. And in the same way, I think there's an equivalent challenge or perhaps difficulty in, okay, well, what about sort of morality and values and these conceptions of, you can use words like justice or right or wrong, but I think there's a really, I'm particularly interested in almost like in a functional sense of like what values, and I'm not trying to assert things, but in a functional sense, what values are important to have whatever goal that you want, or if you want AI to be super intelligent, how does that relate to that? If you want AI to be human-like, and then actually as a tangent, I listened to a little bit of the Learning Salon that I mentioned yesterday. Learning Salon is always this great opportunity. People don't know what it is. It's a collection of people that they get together and they talk about like cool topics in cognition, basically, things about learning and things about I'll show you in a little bit. But there's a line there that's related to my main point, which is they were talking yesterday about how it's convenient sometimes to say, well, we want to get it to human level AI, in the sense of we don't really want to go too far, and we want to default to the sense of what we're doing is the best way to do it as human beings, and we have to keep it at this level. And I feel like it was very well explained. I'm not recalling the precise phrasing at that point, But what I'm trying to bridge here to what I was saying is, I think when it comes to the vast arena that AI is both sort of affecting and also creating, like we're creating this new, whether it's you growing AI into virtual reality and these sort of, computational existences and digital life stuff, sure, but also just the way, automated decision making is happening in a way that, the way law and policy are kind of, being molded around these things. There's sort of this sense of, well, what level and what norms are what should you aim for? I don't. I think it's a long time ago in my life where I thought, as a much younger person, I'm going to join the United Nations, and I'm going to really create the best policy for the world in that sense, and have this sort of vision about that. And I feel obviously I care about things, but I feel far away from that in the sense of I don't think there's either in a very sort of Hobbesian Leviathan sense or not. Like I don't think it's going to be this thing that just enacts this uniformity on the world. I don't foresee that. Nevertheless, I think it's sort of like, if you have a fire hose and this guy was just gushing, if you can steer it in a potentially better direction, I feel like that's sort of what it's kind of coming down to, especially with all the different timelines that are at play with things going on in the world. And that's a hard conversation. Like this is a complicated, multi-layered complication. It's not easy in any means. And I don't necessarily mean to say I'm going to distill all this into the presentation I'm going to do this year at Celebration on Computing. But I feel like, at least for me personally, those are important. I don't even know if conversation is the right word, but they're important things to have access to discussion or being able to talk about. And the people that I know Angela and I know Min are they're I actually met I mostly met them through Princeton and Vision, which is like super related to what I was just explaining anyway, in terms of its outlook and its vision in the future. So that's maybe a much better background about that's gonna be an amazing background compared to what I was thinking about. Like I'll just explain some stuff and then I'll talk about my abstract later. But it's like, no, that's probably better than that's a really good introduction for some of my motivation behind that. And also just like, again, I'm not gonna become a full-time ethics writer. And I think it's tough because that's why I think it's also a really important point because it's sort of like I think many people in the field, many people that I respect, who care about technology and whatever, there's this sort of line, and it's like you can come down the line and saying, well, this is important stuff, but I just want to be a data analyst. I just want to focus on computer vision or deep learning or or even whatever specific field. It's like I know I'm not qualified for it, so I don't want to engage the discussion too much, and I'll let the experts figure it out. And I feel like I get that, and I don't disrespect that viewpoint. But at the same time, I think there's another very important viewpoint of saying you can engage in it at the level that you're at the same time. And I think it's important to do that, even if you're going to do it, like I said, like I'm using this disclaimer, I'm not a full-time XYZ philosopher, ethicist, sociologist, whatever. But at the same time, I think it's why it's part of my aim to normalize that. That, okay, well, you can still get used to being in a team of people who aren't that. Used to being in a team of people who are, in sort of a sociologist who's going to become a data scientist. So she's like a really cool person to have that. But getting used to being in that setting and going to those places, I feel like is kind of important for the future and an important way to deal with, the reality is nobody's trained. I don't know anybody who's, there's some programs I'll give them that, but like, I was not educated to be, as very two cultures, you have your STEM stuff and your history and your literature. And the having a division, having a third way, and all these problems are interdisciplinary problems they're dealing with anyway, and there's a lot of that synergy there too, and I think part of it's just getting acclimated and getting dirty in the fact that you don't know stuff, but slowly you build it over time, and even if this maybe this is a 90s kid reference, but like on PBS in the old school days, like you'd have like Wishbone, and they would, for those who don't know, Wishbone was this dog, this trained dog actor, and there'd be kids, and Wishbone would go on these adventures that were related to classic literature. And I loved the show not because I was a literature nerd, but because it's interesting at the time and they were kind of relatable stories. But what it did is serve as this pathway to appreciating stuff. Like you can't sometimes drop, fine Shakespearean work or like The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, or these really high level stuff that has these references and meaning and stuff. That, like, you can't drop that on somebody new and just say, hey, deal with this, know what you think. They're not going to know. But even approaching it at this level that's basic and understanding that, okay, we're going to engage in this topical area with limited nuance, but it's important to at least develop this sort of affirmation to it. I feel like that's huge, and that was definitely formative in like my overall development as a person, because even going back to Wishbone, like, I didn't know, okay, like Hamlet, like I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go be an expert in this stuff now, but it was a sense of creating that sort of, in a frontier map sort of way, creating a sense of, there's unexplored area over here, and I know kind of what it looks like, and it might be important to know what's over there, so at least I know it's over there. And I feel like that's, this is like a completely, it looks like I've been talking for almost like 30 minutes on this now, so I'll let it be, but like, this is like completely unscripted discussion in my mind about the conference, the specific project, and some of the motivation for what I want to do with some things in the ethics team in general. So there you go. That's it. I can show the specific. To get it out of the way, I'll show
the abstract.
Yeah,
well, I think that's good. I think that's good background for the abstract. Like we haven't really talked much about that area of research, so I think that's a good establishing sort of description of it. I definitely think it makes more sense, at least in my mind, what you're aiming for, and I think it's a very good goal, actually. So let's go through the abstract here.
Yeah, and this document, I'm going to keep this document here, and I like to continue to flesh out this document. This abstract, the submission itself basically looks like this. This might not be the final version that I pulled up here, but it's a very simple format, and I know Danielle's in another university, and I'll add that there. That will be adjusted, but is this the zoomed in. Um, so you're still seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what I have here in this document is, this is what it was. Just to show, here's the main page. Just to show this again. This is what we're talking about. This chair, still kind of makes me a little weird. This image. This is the main logo. This is good stuff here. Submissions are closed. I don't think they extended the deadline. I think there were quite a few. Honestly, I think there were quite a few submissions. I was like in the hundreds, the 100s, but still like that. I think the conference is gonna be kind of big this year, to be honest. But yeah, just to kind of review things again. We'll find out pretty soon what's up, and then we're gonna have the final abstract will have to be due in March, which isn't that far away, and then we'll have kind of a month to wrap things up, and in April we're going. I did submit a research talk on the advice of Bradley, which I think is good actually. I was a little bit hesitant because I don't know. I was hesitant in the sense of I don't necessarily want to. I want to give people the time to do what they need to do, but then it's because it's virtual anyway. I feel like there might be. Hope they'll do breakout sessions, and I don't know. I don't want to take it away from other people's stuff, but at the same time, what I'm talking about does matter, and it matters to me. So, and it could technically be a research talk, and I just talked about it for 30 minutes with no planning. So I'm sure I could talk about it for 20 minutes with some planning, and actually give other people a chance to say things too. So there you go. That's what that is. And now to go back to this title. I don't know. I need to figure out a better team name for this Ethics Society team. This 500 words max. This is definitely less than 500 words. To go over this abstract. Well, I'll go to the abstract finishes. Just for this document, and I'll link this again in Slack. It's there already, but I've shown it to. I believe I've shown it to everybody here so far. We may have another person joining or two. I forget. Excuse me. I think some people in the lab were curious too, but I don't know. Just to go over the document, just the discussion section. These are some key points that I wanted to mention. Yes. Discussion or maybe background, or I don't know, but like stuff. If anybody's seen this and says like, oh, I really want to focus on AI bias or data bias or historical context, like Roman Morrow was one of my favorite speakers at NeuroSim last year. He's really good stuff. There's a book coming out. Ruha Benjamin's kind of a classic name in this field right now. So like if I'm open to adding things to this, and kind of what I would like to do in the abstract is kind of or in the presentation is kind of go over these things. So like I've kind of given you the background, like AI's happening and it's there. What are we going to do with it? In a world of pre-existing and diverse approaches to ethics and culture, already how are we going to move towards a coherent framework, etc. And you kind of like what are some? I would like this presentation to be about let's have a fairly accessible take on some of the key points of creating quote unquote a framework. And I say that with saying, ethical frameworks aren't enough, which is the first thing I'm citing here. And I do like this. This is a good article from you know, kind of critiquing frameworks. So I don't. I'm much more interested in the nitty gritty than the sort of lofty, we'll always have a sustainable vision and human centered and like, I want to get to some of the nuts and bolts about it and like let's look at what are the challenges here and talk a little bit about them. Like neutrality was a really good thing that came up at NeuroIPS in terms of like the Black and AI workshop and some of the Reasons AI workshop and like what is neutrality, does that really exist and what does neutrality look like and who does it benefit or not? Is it even possible? Like is that taking away historical impacts and stuff? And it's something I've discussed before and some work with Valeria and other people in the past has been about there's this lag time between implementation and technology implementation. They're very different. The general issues of automated decision making, bias, and so on and so forth. And so yeah, I like to lay out challenges, and it's funny because even kind of a related topic that I did actual research on, hosted a conference on in my undergraduate was cybersecurity information sharing, which is the difficulty of buying in with that is its own thing. And should government agencies be sharing data on cybersecurity information and so on and so forth? And what are the hurdles of that? Similar to this, like why what's the disparity of buying in and it's very adjacent to climate change buying in. Like, America's already very developed. Why should India have the same restrictions, or other quote unquote developing countries have the same? America got to develop. Why can't they develop? I think that there's a lot of ways to get into here, and it'd be great to kind of frontier map this thing up and say, oh well, here's sort of the lay of the land in this context, and here are kind of the sticking points, here's the challenges, here's what we can do, here's what's been going on, like that kind of a thing. One of my friends has called me, I can't remember his name, but he's one of those he was like a Swiss botanist or something, and he created all these taxonomies all the time, and that was like his thing to do. And they compare me to them because like I like to make these maps and taxonomies of things, and I feel like that's part of what's happening here too. Yes. So that's really abstract. Here's some discussion. I hope people please mention things here. Like there's this is incomplete. And I actually have a lot of stuff that I could have potentially just put a draft of stuff here already. But I'll be doing that later this month because there's no deadline. So I can, it's kind of a balance, and I would ask, your advice on this probably because you've done this many times. You're kind of the leader on a particular document or paper. It's like how do you go about just laying out a framework yourself, and kind of versus encouraging people to say things, and. So there's space for people to shape this for sure. I don't want to steer it entirely in my vision of things. Like I want people to contribute to it, but I do have ideas for how to do that. So that, and I just have a collection of resources here that are. This is actually the our Medium post, which I think is a good resource, and much of it. This is actually really cool. I want to shout out for this for a second.
Okay.
There's a global inventory of AI ethics guidelines already, which there's just a whole bunch of them, and there's like this is like this big database of them. You can search for them. You can search for actors and types and regions. So that's kind of, I never knew about that until I saw it, and so my review for the abstract and everything else. And then some articles, some video. I tried to get Amar's fireside chat at NeuroIPS here, but the video wasn't quite working for me. So I tried to reach out to NeuroSim to see what's up. Well, if it's like you have to log in maybe, but it looks fairly public. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, please contribute to this, and this is further information for the submission, which I'm probably going to delete now. But please contribute to this document at will, and we'll be talking more about this later. So that's all. I will turn the mic over for my open salvo stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. That was good. And I think there's a lot of good stuff there. So if you want to get people to contribute, you should put it in one of the channels with a link, like I've done with some of the other papers. Just, if you have people you want to tag them in the Slack channel, and then put the document, share the document. Like you may want people just to comment or to change text or whatever. So, that's one way to get people involved. But, I mean, the way I'm thinking about this, and we're wanting to do this, I know with developmental AI, we want to create a document that is sort of a overview. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, there are three ways you can do this. The first is to, if you want to establish something that's a collective document, you want to do what you've done here is to lay out sort of a vision for it. So you have like an abstract that's already been established, but then also headings. So that leads you into building this outline, which is going to be driven initially by you, but maybe by other people. If you decide to put together headings from, say, the abstract, take the abstract and say, and I think you have the outline in your head or somewhere in that document, just kind of like reestablish it as a series of headings where people can fill in things. And so you want to do that. You want to have like an outline where you can fill things in. And then, try to, if we do a meeting and we present on it, maybe for 20 minutes, maybe focus on one or two sections per meeting. So, you'll solicit people, they'll look at it, they might have something to put into a section, but that's not really going to facilitate a lot of contribution. I think people just kind of look at it and say, it looks good. They might add in things, they might not, but if you can really highlight what you're looking for at a certain time, that helps. Just, like maybe in a meeting, go over one or 2 points. Or we can even do this through GitHub, where we have issues we create issues around different contribution areas. I don't know if you've ever seen the open papers. I've been working on this in my other job, where, and I know there's one for deep learning in biology or in medicine. It's where it's like a lab where they've solicited where they've written this paper, they've solicited a bunch of contributions from collaborators, and they're managing the whole thing through GitHub. So you're writing a paper and you're assigning issues to people. It could be like, you have, do some literature review on this thing, do some writing of this section. People will agree to do it, and then, they'll have to address the issue.
On GitHub?
Yeah, you can manage the whole thing through GitHub. But I mean, the reason I'm not going to open up that page, I don't really have it with me, but is because this is just something you can do in your own style. Like,
yeah.
So I mean, like, for example, for this outline, we might take like a heading, and that heading will have a couple of GitHub issues attached to it, and say, okay, this is something we want for this. And then people, you can either write it on GitHub in Markdown where they actually push the contributions, or you can manage it through like a Google Doc where they'll add it in the Google Doc, and then, an administrator will look and update the issues. And the reason for that is, not everyone knows how to use GitHub or feels comfortable in Markdown, so that's always good. But the idea is that you have this this outline, you have people, you're soliciting contributions to specific things, and then you're managing it. And because it does get unmanageable with large collaborations, but even with like 4 or 5 people can become unwieldy if they're all just throwing in comments. But that's, I mean, and then you can just use the word commenting mechanism in Google Docs. So if you put, like, if people are putting comments in, just, they're going to show up as different users. Those will all be kind of incorporated at their own level. But that's how I'd approach it. Just kind of, think about it like as an outline, and then think about it as like we're going to open it up, but we're going to highlight different areas of the outline. And, and even like with GitHub issues, you can like write a blog post where you say, today I want to talk about this part of this paper we're working on. And there are like maybe 5 GitHub issues that we'll talk about and explain what they are and what you're looking for. And I know that's a lot of work, but it's actually, I think it's, if you're trying to get really solid ideas together, I think that's a good way to go, because it allows you to think, like have this conversation with potential contributors and say, what do you want to, this is what we're looking for. And this is the philosophy behind it and everything. So they get like a sense of how to approach it. Because they're going to ask you that anyways. Like, I mean, you can't write like a paragraph in a paper without some context, or else it's really awkward and you end up revising it anyways. So I think that's a good way to go. And then, it's like if you just transcribe conversations you have as well. If someone, we talk about something, you can just transcribe it into some text and attribute them, of course, but like make sure that like it's written in a certain, in a way that's consistent with the rest of the paper. I think that's a good way to approach it. I've been using some of these techniques and some of the stuff, not in a systematic way, but just kind of revisiting it. And so I think that's a good way to go forward on that.
I think I slightly misunderstood what you said. You're like, open on GitHub, and it's like, oh, I know what you meant. Like, yeah, like I remember, like I know things that you go over and outside that, which I did that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good, and I think I will. I think, given what I said, I'll just create. I think on that document I'll create some headlines and I'll create some leads to follow. And also just to say this, like, it's true we don't know. I feel like the team, particularly Min, and if Angela wants to contribute as well, like, I know they have, like, there's stuff already essentially that there's stuff that could literally just be put into the presentation, and it's like I have to keep in mind too, like, well, I think literally what I'm going to be doing. Let me look at this again here. It's going to be a presentation in itself, so all this is going to be some slides that we're going to do. So I think I'll create sort of an outline, even if it's sort of, an outline of presentation or the general concept itself. But well, to stick to my point here is, excuse me, I think there's a pretty good chance this gets accepted because of the conference. It's not the most difficult conference to get into, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just a small local conference, and so on. So it will probably get accepted, but and maybe I'll get that thrown back in my face and whatever. But my point here is, like, as this has come up many times in the lab, what we're doing. This particular topic is a topic that for me, will be very ongoing and enduring. So if we create a presentation here, we'll present it somewhere for sure. But I'm very, I don't know how to explain it, but like I'm really happy that I just spent an hour of the lab's time on this today, and I really appreciate that because it's difficult to find venues that can basically let you do it. So I appreciate that I can do it in a lab, and I don't want to take up any more time about it. But there will be. This is something that I needed to kind of have in my life more, and this is a good way. I'm very excited about this, and really excited that the more that as I've been mentioning it, more and more people are kind of like curious. So we'll see where things go, but
Yeah.
I will. We can move on to the next thing now.
Yeah. So yeah, I drew like a whole bunch of stuff here while you were talking. So I have it. I'm not gonna draw it in like anything, but I mean I might draw it out later and put it in Slack. So just some ideas and how they're connected, maybe.
Your tablet?
No, I actually have it on paper, but I can draw it on a tablet to
Cool.
put it up on the. So I was wondering if you have the Slack team open on your computer.
I do. Do you want me to show it?
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen because I don't have it up here.
Okay. Where do you want me to go in there?
I'll tell you when you get it up. I don't really know yet. I just wanted to review some of it.
Run a while. Okay, that looks a little creepy.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go, yeah. Alright, so this is the Slack for, I don't think Jesse, oh yeah, he does have the full suite of channels, I think. But I just wanted to look over some of the channels here, what's going on. So we have Min is a new member of the Slack. She's in philosophy and ethics in that channel largely, but probably in other channels as well.
Yeah, here's Min's intro. She did sociology, and now she's big into data. Min's an amazing person. I respect her a lot, and Anson is in this conversation spirit, and probably Angela too. But like we met at Princeton and Vision, and it's reminder, Princeton and Vision applications are not open. I'm going to talk about that later, but it is happening this year finally. So hopefully, more good people need to come from that. Glad to have you in all that. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then we have, go up a little bit more. We have Katerina Wojciuk, who's in the Brain Organoids channel. So she's a brain organoids person from UC Santa Cruz. She works in a lab there. And Morgan Howe, who is, I don't see him on here, but we'll go to the Brain Organoids channel next. He invited her in. So we had a meeting, Morgan, Katerina, myself, last week about brain organoids. So this is the Brain Organoids channel, and I wanted to bring this to people's attention because it's been quite active recently.
Yeah, how far back do you want me to go?
Well, I just wanted to show, all the activity. So this is, there's a lot. So Morgan's been posting a lot of papers in this channel, a lot of good stuff. I want to eventually organize this into like a educational thing, like to educate people on brain organoids, because one of the things about brain organoids, it's a fascinating area, but it requires a pretty hard, steep learning curve. You're going to have, like, Hippocampus as a predictive map is a nice paper, is sort of a big picture of what organoids might do. But there are other biological topics like tissue engineering and stem cell manipulation that are in here as well. We have machine learning as an organoid predictor. So I mean, there's a lot of like interesting topics that one can derive out of this field. And so this is where we're putting a lot of stuff in the channel, and it's very active. So I would recommend, if you're at all interested, to join the channel. But then also we want to be able to organize this stuff somehow.
Do you think that's going to be like? I haven't dived deep into this part of things yet, but I'm very interested in it. And I feel like there's going to need to be some. I think that's sort of going to be essentially a call for involvement to help us organize that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, like, so there are a couple things about, like, first of all, there's like materials that are educational, and then there's like a bibliography, and then there's also this theme of data science, because a lot of this work is, in culture, in biological culture. So it's not something that we necessarily would do in the lab as a first-hand thing. Our area would probably be in data analysis of different data sets and things that are available. So I think Morgan pointed to some data sets in the channel. There's like, there are open data sets for EEG, but then there are other data sets for like, actual measuring organoid activity. And there are different ways to do that. There are different physiological measures. So, but we do have data sets that are available, and those are the things that we would target. So it's actually also a data science thing. There's a theme there too. And I know you're interested, Jesse, in data science, or you're doing this MicroMasters. So I mean, these might be some practical sort of practice activities for that sort of thing. So
Yes.
So there's a lot of stuff in here. We'll have to sort through it. So I think there's been activity in philosophy and ethics as well. Has there been a lot of activity in that recently, or?
I think it's mostly just been me posting random stuff like usual. No. Similar. Honestly, in an ideal world, I organize some of this as well. I think I've shown this before, but this is kind of the card for this team. I need a more coherent title descriptor than this, but whatever.
Yeah.
This has come up a few times. You mentioned this, I think, again recently, and this is from is it Ryan Cole? I forgot his name. He was one of the really interesting guy, and I have many. If we have time, I can. There's some tweets that have been really good this week as well. Some of them from him. But I kind of forgot my point. But this is the upcoming thing that I may try to throw something together for this, but it's I'm not so sure about that. But this is the content is really amazing and very related to what we're doing here. You can see it here, the legal and policy questions related to robots,
Right.
and so on. So maybe a little more for actual lawyers than me, but I'm still very curious about that. Some other stuff. There's some other a real quick tangent. I can pull this off and I'll do this. Where did it go? Oh, what? Okay, sorry. Real quick tangent. programming ethics and normal linear. Just kind of a shout out to this. I'm not even going to talk about it much, but I'll just say that programming ethics, normal linear, new ethics, and related to cybernetics. Keywords only. All right, that's all I'm going to say about it. Danielle has been active here. I know she's not in this meeting, but like present in this virtual meeting room. But there is some discussion and things going on. That's good. I didn't get to look at. Oh, I did get to look at that one. And there's some other stuff here. I would like to create a more similar to the brain organized thing. There seems to be some foundational, mapping and structuring of stuff there as well. And eventually, this is all outside of focusing on the paper. Like, it probably won't be. This will be an ongoing thing to do. So yeah, I'll get rid of that. Anything? What else on?
Well, yeah. Why don't we go down to open office hours, open chat. Looks like that's been about a conversation. We have these stand-ups now, so that it's never really that informative. But I just wanted to put it in for people to.
Yeah, there's some really good discussion here about developmental AI stuff, and I look forward to fleshing that out. And mostly just been updates and things like that.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm not sure I've followed up on that, but we'll do that like next week. Maybe we'll go back to that and refocus, because we have this deadline coming up on March 7th for A-Life 2021, and that's going to be a developmental AI paper that we're going to recycle, the Baby Minds paper. So I haven't mentioned it yet. I haven't brought it back to people's attention, but this is something we're going to work on in the next couple of weeks, trying to flesh it out a little bit more, get it ready for that conference. So let's see, go down to, let's see, maybe, conference materials, maybe. Okay, there, we have. So this is the channel if you want to check the latest things that are sort of being crowdsourced in the lab. This is the place. We have two abstracts, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. The CSV Conf abstract and the SURE workshop. So those are near deadlines. And then the AI, or the A-Life paper is a little bit farther out, but we have that pretty well in hand. That's the paper we submitted to Baby Minds, so we'll have to update that. No, that's the SURE workshop. Yeah, so that's something coming up. Oh, yeah, I'll talk about that in a little bit here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's it for the different channels. I did want to mention that Danielle is going to, her new title in the lab is going to be as an editor in the lab. I'm just giving her a title. I want to give people titles if I think that they're doing really good in one area or another. So welcome, Daniela. And you've been in Slack a lot, so that's good. So yeah, if people want to start doing something very specific in the lab, you get a title in the lab, and this is a good way, I think, to build up skills. If you're doing something very specific in the lab, this is how Jesse became lab manager. He was doing that sort of thing, so he got assigned that role. So I think that's good. I don't think there's anything else in the Slack that we need to talk about too much. Just, I think that's it for now. So why don't I share my screen now?
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Alright, so let me actually go to the submissions. Let's see, here we go. And I just wanted to go over the submissions really quick. And I know that this is like always a work in progress, this list. So developmental AI or actually the OHBM Twitter conference, that doesn't seem, I haven't seen any updates on this. So I don't know what's going on. But when it comes up, we'll talk about it. I don't know. I mean, last year they did it. The site was open by the 1st of February, so I don't know. Maybe they're not having it this year. The SIGCHI workshop, Emergent Interaction, this has been submitted. Technically, we still have another week to update the draft, but, that's been submitted. I think it's in pretty good shape for at least for review. And a point on this, when we're submitting stuff, sometimes I'll submit stuff in advance to get it in the system, and then we can update the draft up to the deadline. So, I might submit it a week before the deadline, and then we can update the version of the paper that's been submitted. So you can do this, a couple times if need be. So if you end up seeing something submitted, don't panic. It's just, I want to get it submitted before the rush and before, in case things go down the night before it's due, we can get that out of the way. And then we can always update it anyways. So, but that's been submitted, and hopefully that gets accepted. I like the way it came out, the allostasis machines paper. It could always be longer, more detailed in places, but I think at this point, what we'll do is we'll wait until they review it and send back the reviews. And if it gets rejected, then we'll just tailor it for another venue. It's not that difficult, but it's I don't know how many pages, about 8 or 9 pages of sort of a normal format, and then in the conference format, it's about 5.
And is that one past the review point, or that's what the review after that?
I think technically we have a week left on this. So, if we want to add anything at the last minute, we can do that. I think the 14th is the deadline, the absolute deadline. And then there's this Evolution 2021, which is more Diva worm oriented. Developmental AI Cog Futures for Artificial Life. So this is the Artificial Life Conference. So this is March 7th. So it's coming up, not too far down the road. I know the Developmental AI paper, which is otherwise known as the Baby Minds paper, is a good candidate for that. I think we can do, and we can update that, of course, because I think the length is about 8 pages in their format. And we have about maybe 6 pages in a similar format. So we have right now it's in the NeuroSim format, which is similar to the AY format. But it's, I think we can add a little bit more. We still have room. And so we might do that. I'll be making a call on Slack soon for that. The CSV Conf abstract, so that's coming up on February 28th. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is it. So this is, so this is the abstract. So last year we submitted an abstract for this, and Jesse and I did the presentation, and it focused on this epistemological directories idea, and it was well received, and it was a very general viewpoint. This year we're kind of focusing on 3 things we've done this year. We have the stream feeds, the twirly word notes, and the version control aspect. So, last year it was like kind of a sketch of what it looks like, these different instances that we created, the discussion that we were having around that. This year it's going to be more specific. So this abstract just kind of goes into these 3 different innovations. So that's about the technological innovations. So stream feeds are this thing where we're looking at different feeds of social media or media that are lab related and integrating them in some way. And then we talk about that. Then Twirlybird notes, which are the system used to organize group notes. And Jesse, you might want to put in something a little bit more succinct. I think I made kind of a transcription of what we've been talking about in the meetings, but make sure you check that to make sure it makes sense. Just the whole abstract in general, but like that part specifically. So the Twirlybird notes are an attempt to capture what would otherwise be fleeting, ephemeral points and ideas that occur to individuals during asynchronous engagement with virtual stream materials. So it's just a little wordy, but
yeah, I will definitely go over this, but it looks good so far.
Yeah. And then
what's the limit per words on this one?
Oh, I'm not sure. Let's see what we're at now.
It's like under 200.
326. So I mean, I think it's probably 500 is the limit, if I'm not mistaken. But it's one of those things that can be like, you can always find like maybe 50 words or more to cut down. Like once you have it written in a way that's very succinct, then you can find ways to cut it, because it's like when you're writing it out, it's like you want to write it out, you want to get everything in there, but then you find in doing so that you can condense things.
I was more thinking like how much space do I have to put new things in here?
Probably not a lot. Although, what were you thinking of putting in?
I'll have to read it to go through it, but I was more like just gauging what I have, how specific to be.
Yeah.
So I don't have like anything in my mind at this time.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like if it's really something specific, maybe a sentence on each point. Like so, if something in the Twirlybird notes, we can maybe put one sentence or something very specific. Maybe if you have a reference you want to show off, we can put that in here. And then that would work. Finally, we'll revisit the ED architecture and consider new ways in which we can use version control. So I talk about open papers here, which I talked about earlier. Issue-based and open-ended contributions. So, like, you can make a contribution based on specific issues that you create, or more open-ended, like I'm going to write a paragraph on this paper and then, solicit those sorts of things. The open papers and Twirlybird systems are built on top of topical stubs, which are the core element of EDs that serve as a tool, and this is from last year. This integration allows for niche topics to be developed in more substantial intellectual contributions. So that's the ED's abstract for this year. I think it complements last year's pretty well, and then we'd have to create a presentation for it. I'd probably follow up on last year's. And so the abstract is due February 28th. So I think we have that in hand. Let's see. So the Envision Conference, so this is something that has a deadline. You said they're accepting submissions now. Is there a new deadline for this or for submitting?
I wanted to try to find that. Let me, like it's in my emails here. There are new deadlines for that. Let's see. Okay. The event itself is April 9. The first deadline for applications is February 20th for the early deadline. I have reached out to the. I don't know if we'll be able to. Well, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what I haven't done the application yet, so I don't know if they're going to change it up this year or not. If we, that's a big, honestly, it's a big unknown. I would say if you're interested in anything that this lab covers, the first interview, and it can be very specific to a specific thing. It can be brain organoids, it can be developmental brain vehicles, it can be anything about cybernetics, anything about, obviously anything about tech and future and whatever that I've been talking about today. Please apply, please apply, please apply. Ask me about applications. It's really a great event. And I'm not quite sure. I did reach out to them just on my own, and also, I mentioned my another Princeton Division friend, Logan. I kind of was like, hey, Logan, it'd be great if Logan spoke about stuff at his lab, because he's actually working and he's doing research on he's trying to do he's big into biology and I don't know, the word escapes me right now, but he's researching things related to the COVID virus.
Okay.
And the molecular biology, stuff like that. And I wanted him to talk about his work in that area. And I'm like, yeah, Logan should totally talk about his stuff at Division, because he's doing a lot of great stuff there. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can talk about stuff in my lab too. And, we'll see where that goes. And I don't know, it could be formal or informal at this point, but great opportunity, check it out, apply, do it. Like that. I don't think they've updated their website yet.
Okay.
I think the link that you have to the right is accurate. It's just they're probably only going to update it after, just before the conference, because it tends to be how they do it.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this and you're trying to find about it, look in Slack or ask me, because I think they kind of, the early deadline is kind of a little bit more low key, but it's not necessarily reserved. Princeton is very accessible, but they're kind of, the early deadline is kind of kind of for the people who know about it already. And if you're curious about it, please reach out to me or talk about it in Slack, and we will talk about it, obviously.
Yeah. So this application, is this for groups or is this for individuals? And if you wanted to put a submission for a presentation, is that per individual, or do we do a group thing, or how does that work?
Well, I'm going to look now at their form, because last year, the applications are individual, and I'm trying to see if they have. Oh yeah, they're gonna send out gear this year. That's great. Princeton Division T-shirts are the best. It looks like what you can do right now in the form is suggest a speaker, which could be you could basically submit you could suggest anything from our lab in that context, I think. If you wanted to speak, or if you wanted Bradley to speak, or something like that. I'm not sure if they're going to let you do a New York Celebration of Women Computing. That's you can submit you can make a presentation and do it there. I'm not sure it's going to be like that this year for Envision. I don't think that's I don't think it's going to be quite like that, but what they typically have done at the same, I don't, for example, last time they had Envision, which was 2 years ago, amazing time, you basically could form a group at Envision and present on a topic. I will forever regret that I didn't actually work with Logan on a project. I was this close to doing it, and I did other things, and it would have been great. We would have talked about like the significance of modeling stuff, and Logan was really into like the point of basically creating like modeling with like bee brains, basically, like insect brains, stuff like that. So I will always regret that I didn't work on that with him, because I almost did, and yeah. So there will likely be some kind of group or team activity that you can do at Envision and bring, kind of like in the past it's been sort of like a hackathon vibe, or a couple years ago there was sort of a entrepreneurial like showcase or pitch thing. And I don't know the details yet what that's going to be, but there will likely be some way to present something there. But it's not necessarily like you don't have to have a paper ready to go to apply. So apply now. And if you're interested in anything that falls under the venue of Envision, basically just talk to me about it, or because I can try to find out more about that specifically. But that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
And the event itself is in April, I believe. Is that true? It'll be April 9 to 10. So okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe do like a group presentation, find out about that, how you would go about forming a group. I think that would be good. And then whoever else is interested in the lab, we can get other people involved. And it's kind of like what we submitted to Cyber Cafe Scientifique, which is this one down here. I haven't heard back about that yet, but that abstract is ready to go as like a general project we can do in different ways to different venues. So yeah, so there's that. And then we have Neuromatch Academy coming up. I guess they're starting up calls for a new year for applications for that. So if you're wanting to attend Neuromatch Academy, I think they want to know if people are interested.
I think there was a survey online on Twitter or online somewhere, or like, I don't know if it was just an interest survey or like a preliminary application. I forget which it was. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Let me look. Actually, you can.
Yeah.
I'll look quickly to see if I can find it.
So then the other thing that's due soon is this Scientific Understanding and Representations Workshop submission. That is here. So this is something Danielle has been commenting on recently. I'll address the comments soon. This is 300 to 500 words. So right now we're at how many words? 304. So this is like just trying to like describe this, what this talk would be about. It's following up on the observers stuff from the talk that I gave in December, but it kind of goes a little bit, it kind of focuses on two different types of model systems for representation, and kind of describes what they are and relative to an observer, and probably requires a little bit more work in terms of like how this is relevant. I don't know. I've been reading through it, and I think the relevance is a little bit tenuous, but that's something that can be kind of massaged out of it. So there may be a couple sentences that need to be put in that are joining different parts of it, if that makes sense. Basically to give it some relevance to maybe this group, maybe more generally to the world. I kind of get into the idea of scientific philosophy of science, and like the creation of models of empiricism and models of hypothesis building and all that. So it's kind of an interesting approach. We'll have to hopefully, even if it doesn't get accepted, we'll maybe have to follow up on this. But that's due February 15th, so that's coming up next week. I think probably by next week's meeting it should be submitted. And there's an easy chair form for that. This Baby Minds paper, of course, that's going to be in the Artificial Life 2021 bin. Then we have a couple other things coming up. The Society in Ethics was submitted. This fellowship to AI Now is 3-1, so that's something that Jesse mentioned that's upcoming. Maybe I'll put a red. When I put these red number, when I color the number in red, that just means that it's coming up in the next couple weeks, so we want to draw our attention to that. I'm working on a Darwin Day blog post for Synthetic Daisies. Darwin Day is 2/14, so if you have ideas, I solicited the DeviantArt group as well. Let me know on Slack or email about, if you have ideas for some post. I think I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do, but I'm not quite sure how to pull it off, so we shall see. And then finally, there's this ACM Collective Intelligence, which is coming up on March 1st.
Yeah. They sent me. They followed me on Twitter.
Okay.
Did I mention that? That's like, ACM Collective Intelligence followed me on Twitter. Like, oh yeah, that conference is coming up again. So yeah, I don't know how they really found me about that, but it's cool.
No, they just, I guess if you share articles on stuff, sometimes, I don't know, it's a magical thing sometimes. Yeah. So that deadline is coming up on 3/1, so that's coming up in the next couple weeks. That's a 3 to 5 page abstract, which would probably have something suitable. I just don't know what it is. Going back over all the stuff that we've been generating, there's got to be something in there that's useful. I'm not sure about the Shared Minds paper. That was kind of what we submitted. So we submitted a version of that last year to ACM and they rejected it. Then we submitted it. We worked on it more, picked up steam, submitted it to the Shared Visual Representations, and then that got rejected. And now it's, I don't know if it would be suitable for this, but we'll find something to submit for this. I think we talked about collective intelligence enough in the group that we have something that we could put together. It's a matter of getting it together by the deadline. So if anyone has any ideas of things that we want to follow up on or work on for that, let me know. So yeah, that's all the stuff about the deadlines and the upcoming submissions. So we're really in the heat of that. Like I said, I think like the first part of the year is where a lot of the stuff gets submitted. So it's going to be like, a rush for the sprint for the next month or so to get like different things to different places. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. Again, we're going to pick up again. I know we were submitting these cards we were posting these cards on the Lab Medium for like every other day for like a week. So we have a bunch of them up here. These different calls for involvement. So we have the innovation in open science. We have metabrain models. And, there's been some interest in this. Reconstructing cybernetics development of Brainberg vehicles. I stopped posting them for a while because, we have so many now that people are going through them probably. So, but we'll start up again soon. Maybe we'll repost some of these, or we'll do like post some different ones. I know the Society and Ethics card is ready to go, more or less. Maybe we'll post that this week sometime. Jesse, if you can change the title if you want. I'll probably send it out this week sometime.
Yeah, I'll do that. Also, I kind of want to, I meant to create a running log and stuff for today. Maybe I'll still try to do that now, but, our little notes, our notes about, our actual Saturday morning NeuroSim notes, those were useful. I haven't been doing those on me, but
okay.
I'll do that again.
Yeah, you mean the ones that you post to Medium?
Yeah, just as sort of recaps.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Useful for people to see. Yeah, so that's definitely there. And again, if you're interested in writing on this medium, please let me know. I invited Rashab, and he wanted to do it, but he hasn't found time yet for it. But any topic would be interesting. If there's a talk that you're giving or you're interested in some topic, we had a recap of the Maine 2020 conference, which was on neuro AI. We had a recap of, I think, of some NeurIPS topics. I can't find it right now, but basically, if there's something like that that's scientific communication oriented or a call for involvement, please let me know. We'll get it up on the medium. So now, I think finally in the last 30 minutes, I'll cover some papers. Again.
Can I just do a few other quick updates?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'll probably share my screen. There we go. Okay. Just really quickly.
I don't see your screen, actually.
Is it there now?
Oh, no, I do. Yeah, I do.
I think I just turned it off. Okay. You can see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
That was funny. What am I trying to do here? Oh, NeuroMatch. I did check out the form. This is pretty much an interest pre-registration form. So if we go here, it's the Airtable, NeuroMatch Academy, career stage. It's very quick. I like to be a part of the revolution at the end here. It's a very much like, and you kind of ask at the deep learning course too, like Conrad's doing. So I mean, it's a really simple form, but kind of just to gauge interest and definitely fill it out. Put that in the slot. What did I want to do here? Highlight for this learning salon. This was really cool. It was on. It was on. We have a snippet of it somewhere. Nope, I don't. Sorry. It was on. Like cognitive maps and representation, and that was very good. I got part of it, but I want to go over it as part of the cognition study group stuff for sure. So just point that out. Would be a better. And I also wanted to highlight that paper specifically. But yeah. And actually, this is the predictive map hippocampus thing anyway. Which is kind of linked here. But this was good. So highlight for that. This paper looks really cool as well. I see this here. Environmental complexity, evolved morphology, and learnability of intelligent control. That's definitely something that I find it to be an interesting topic. Kind of like environmental stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at this paper. This is a really good one. This is this is a really good paper. Fei Li, is that from her group or?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So this actually looks a lot like, I don't know if you've seen the stuff you know who Josh Bongard is, but I think they're doing a lot of similar, like the kind of, using these point animations or these stick animations and evolving them in a virtual environment like that. Yeah, I think that's an interesting approach. So you can like evolve different forms, and they're actually able to do things like run around, and then you can. I don't know if they're actually doing any like natural selection on this. Looks like they're definitely going in that direction, but it's it's kind of interesting, that kind of approach, because you can see like how selection actually works on something like this, where you have something that is having to behave in sort of a very real way. Like, if I give you like a fitness metric and I say, well, this sequence is not, is above the fitness threshold, you don't really know what that means. You can see a graph of like fitness increasing in the population, but it's hard to see what that actually means. In simulations like this, you can actually see like they're doing something that's increasing their fitness. It's they're doing things that are more maybe plausible in terms of locomotion or manipulating things in the environment.
I have a tangential question. One that's evolution. Like, this is something that breaks down a certain barrier between biological evolution and computational simulation stuff, and with these like sort of almost like vacuum, like you kind of create this vacuum in the simulation of there's a terrain, there's a block, there's a creature. Is there, because I don't know how to phrase this specifically, and this is called it's come up with some of our other work in our evolutionary stuff in general, but I think I'll create the simplest question as I can and just let it be and move on to other things. But the question I have is, in these situations where there's sort of evolution going on, is there how would you describe or model like the cost of evolutionary choices? A lot of the times the model is just like, oh well, there might be is there development in the sense of it's sort of learning how to manipulate its limbs, or changing the number of limbs that it has. And it depends a lot on the setup, obviously, but I guess my rhetorical question, not just the answer, my rhetorical question is, how does one measure the cost of change in evolutionary structures?
Yeah. So, I mean, in a purely evolutionary approach, you would have like a you would have a population of agents. So, like, let's suppose you had like a population that was exploring the space, the configuration space. If we had an animation like this where we had a stick figure that was running, and you wanted to change different things about it, so there was some mutation recombination that allowed you to build these different types of walkers. So each walker would be distributed across the population, so each walker would be slightly different. There might be walkers that had like specialized changes that were maybe adaptive or maybe maladaptive, and those things would be either fit or less fit in the environment. Now, there's something called evolutionary contingency, which is maybe the cost of like some sort of adaptation. Because like if you make a change to an organism, like a walker, say you add a third leg, you don't do that to the entire population. That happens in maybe a single individual. And so there's a cost, of course, to that, which is fitness. So it's either more fit or less fit. So like a third leg might be good for certain specialized tasks, like manipulating this box, but might be bad for like running fast. And so that might affect its fitness if you like say the most important thing for this stick figure is to manipulate the box. Then it's very fit. But if the imperative is to run away from a predator, then the imperative is much less so, or the fitness is much less so. And so the cost there is relative. It's the cost of like making a change like that is relative to the objective. the fitness objective. So the fitness objective again is like manipulating a box. It's very, your cost is very low. In fact, it's there's an incentive. But if you're trying to escape predators, the cost is very high. And this holds true if like your objective remains the same or changes over time. So like if your objective is always the same, it's to avoid predators, and that's it. Then there's a cost against innovating. So like you don't want to innovate too much because you like disrupt your ability to escape predators. If the predation pressures are really high. Now in nature you don't really have that kind of artificial imperative. It's like there are a lot of things that you do, and there are a lot of reasons why you see traits evolve. So it's a little harder to sort of suss out in nature and even in some of these simulated populations. But so you can look at it in terms of like the imperative, in terms of what's driving the fitness imperative, but then you can also look at it from the context of evolutionary contingency. And so contingency is where if you make a change and your population evolves towards that change. So say for example you evolved a third leg in one individual, and then you wiped out all the other individuals. So that was the only individual left standing, was the variant with the third leg. And then you just started to produce copies of that third leg, and you started to keep evolving in that direction. You've wiped out all your variation that doesn't involve a third leg. Then you're dealing with a situation where there's a high cost to innovating and keeping that innovation, because if you have small populations that get wiped out, or if this solution is like something that will sort of wipe out all the other contributors, then there's a high cost to that innovation, because it doesn't it works against all the other variation in the population. I know that's a little convoluted, but that's something that like probably there's a paper there. I think that's a good point though. It's a good question to ask, because I can't remember. I know that people have explored this topic, but I think if you look in the A-life literature, and actually in the experimental evolution literature, there's some reference to this.
Yeah, and there's a whole tangent, and I don't understand why. I think I have things you want to present, so I don't need to go to rabbit hole too much. But there are a number of things that came up right when they found. And even when you're talking about goals and how goals shape fitness, in the simulations, there isn't really, unless you particularly model it, like there's not, I think like in the most biological sense, like you're under this constant pressure to keep it together, like this literally like hold your body together against the weight of the environment and all the sorts of attacks and deterioration. So there's this existential, constant existential weight on everything. That's like the precursor. That's like your first goal. Like if you don't, not necessarily in all situations, but there's sort of this main goal of surviving, and like these computational models don't deal with that unless you particularly program it, I suppose. And that's like that's really interesting in many ways. In terms of what are the goals and how do the fitness goals become relevant? Like obviously in natural biology, there's it depends on the organism, the ecosystem, and everything else. And humans are kind of this special case of this because we've created these like mind environments that are people will destroy themselves for an idea, which is great and terrible at the same time. And I guess what I'll say is I'd be interested in looking at how the perception of those goals affects things. Like it affects morale and everything else. But also, really quickly, I wanted to share. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Well, I guess you can see escalation hypothesis then.
Yeah.
This is a cool, really interesting theory, and basically, are you adapting to the environment or are you adapting to competition? Um, and how does that affect what's relevant? So it's sort of like what goals are relevant, and some of this guy's ideas are like, well, if you have pure adaptations to compete with other people, you might be more able to survive general, like you might be able to survive broader environmental stuff as opposed to, well, I gotta put all my adaptive energy and evolution and my whatever your development towards fighting off this immediate competitor that you have versus being more diversified. So that's kind of interesting to think about as well. And the last thing I want to say is this was cool. I didn't look at this much, but another Princeton paper with our acquaintance Maxwell Ramstead Inez. And this looks like a cool paper that I look at later, but I just want to mention that. And that's it. That's all.
Yeah. Thanks for that sharing. I think that the conversation about evolution and goals and things. I know there's been some work on goals in cybernetics, and then some work actually on goal oriented. So, like in cognition, people are really interested in goal oriented behaviors. But traditionally in evolution, that's not really been a thing. I mean, people don't really think of goals as a thing in evolution. It's more like what they refer to as open-ended evolution, where you have you have a sort of a history, and then you have a set of paths that are contingent on that history, and then you're evolving things not to meet a goal necessarily, but to given your options, maybe what makes things more or less flexible, or maybe you're specializing towards a certain environment. But it's like kind of the idea of goals is a little foreign when you talk to people in the evolutionary community. So there is that sort of mismatch of language. I've actually written some blog posts on synthetic daisies several years ago that I might post in the Slack on this too. So stay tuned on that. We'll revisit this. I did want to get then finally to the papers. Let me see. Okay, share the screen. So this is a bunch of things here. I've got a lot of things here, but we'll only go through a couple of them. So the first one I wanted to point out, so I think you mentioned this in the Slack earlier, the ontology of the enemy, Norbert Wiener and the cybernetic vision. This is a critical inquiry paper, so this is, so what are your thoughts about this paper?
I didn't really get too deep into it because it was a little bit different than what I expected it to be. I think it's a good paper. I don't really have a lot to say about it though.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's he talks about building in Weiner's own term usage of the term Monachian, which means oppositional, light and dark and things like that, to designate the continuing struggle against an active oppositional intelligence that will cause triad wartime enterprises, operations, research, cybernetics, and game theory. I'd choose the third war science, cybernetics, an entry point to the machine-human systems. So this is just getting into a critique, I think, of cybernetics and some of the thinking that went into the to the enterprise. And so if you're interested in intellectual history, intellectual philosophy, this is a good paper to read. Let's see. Another paper, philosophically oriented paper, is William Wimsatt, Randomness and Perceived Randomness in Evolutionary Biology. In the Deagleworm group, we've talked a bit about Wimsatt. Dick Gordon is interested in WIMSAT, and he's a WIMSAT is a philosophy of biology person, a theoretical biologist. So he's got a lot of interesting ideas. So this talks about randomness in evolutionary biology. It's sort of related to what we were just talking about. So in recent years, we've seen a growth of interest in the concept of randomness among philosophers and mathematicians. Particularly interesting has been the development of new connections between the concept of computational complexity and the idea of the degree of randomness of a sequence as connected with the complexity of the simplest program capable of generating that sequence. This is the idea of algorithmic information theory. There was an interesting book on this topic with respect to evolution that was released about 10 years ago. I did a review of the book. It's on the Synthetic Daisies blog, so if you're interested, I can point it out to you. So recent work in evolutionary biology has proceeded in related directions. In general, the evolutionary unit, group of genes, or an organism, population, or species must appropriately adapt to its changing environment. An increasingly influential view that is seen as the problem of predicting a sequence of environmental changes or higher order patterns in that sequence in order to make the appropriate responses in these environments. People have advocated a view according to which roughly evolutionary units at various levels evolve in such a way so as to minimize the uncertainty or unpredictability of their environments, subject to constraints imposed by their genetic systems, their phenotypic organization, the rate of acquisition and loss of information, their time, and generally to a weighting of the cost and benefits of achieving a given level of environmental predictability. Well, this is very this is very fortuitous because we just talked about this. I didn't expect this actually. So the second theme has been seen in recent development has been the exploration of simple deterministic models involving nonlinear difference equations for population parameters, which show a variety of periodic, almost periodic, or pseudo-random or chaotic behaviors. And when he says recent, he's talking about, I think, the 1970s. So this is like stuff that's been developed since then. But it's interesting to go back to the source because I really don't know. We'll have to do like a Google Scholar forward reference search on this paper. It'd be interesting to see where it's been cited. In this paper, I cannot do more than to suggest some of the links that can be drawn and hope the problems and issues suggested will attract others. And so he talks about dynamical systems, talks about randomness in the environmental grain, whatever that is, and then returns to the conjoint issues of the description, modeling, and prediction of patterns of environmental change. So this is very much within the bounds of the question you were asking. And, if you're interested in this paper, like I said, you can read the paper, but also do a forward search on the references. So you go to Google Scholar, you enter this title, and then when you get the paper, when it comes up, it'll say cited by a certain number of people. And so then you click on that link, and it gives you a set of the references that have referenced this paper since it was published. So you'll see that, I don't know, I'm not going to do the search now, but, you'll see that it's probably has a fair number of citations, and you can see, kind of the different strands of intellectual development that have come out of it. So then this third paper is something from the year 2000. It's called The Dawning Age of Stochasticity. So this is 20 years ago, so we should be well into the age of stochasticity by now. But the idea is this is more of a philosophical paper. I think it's a broader time scale than 20 years. But so the abstract is for over 2 millennia, Aristotle's logic has ruled over the thinking of Western intellectuals. All precise theories, all scientific models, even models of the process thinking itself, have in principle conformed to the straitjacket of logic. But from its shady beginnings, devising gambling strategies and counting corpses in medieval London, probability theory and statistical inference now emerge as better foundations for scientific models, especially those of the process of thinking, and as essential ingredients of theoretical mathematics. even the foundations of mathematics itself. We propose that the sea change in our perspective will affect virtually all of mathematics in the next century. So kind of getting into this idea of the 21st century is this century of, and it kind of goes over this lecture that was delivered in 1999. The idea of the 21st century is the century of stochastic mathematics. And so stochastic theories and stochastic approaches are basically those based on sort of random approaches or random variables. So, stochastic, we think of it as, if you think of like, shuffling a deck of cards as randomizing the deck, you're actually creating a stochastic process by shuffling the cards in a deck. So you're randomizing things, but there's a process behind that randomization. And so stochastic theories that go beyond just mere randomization, it's actually where, you might have something like a generative process where things are generated, but they're not generated at regular intervals. They're generated stochastically, which means there's a lot of fluctuation over time in how things are generated. We've done a couple papers. The periodicity of the embryo is very stochastic in the sense that you're analyzing this process of fluctuation, but you're treating it not as a set of outliers or averages, but you're treating it as more of a system where the stochasticity is built in. So, you have like mechanical models like a watch, like a clockmaker model of nature. And of course, we found over time, this is something that was introduced in the Middle Ages, we found over time that that's an incorrect model of nature. Nature doesn't work like a clock or, a stopwatch or something like that. It works more like maybe like a set of cards shuffling, and we have all these stochastic processes in nature. And so this is a nice paper. It's a bit philosophical, but it's definitely gets into this. It gets you into this mindset of stochastic systems. And of course, if you're familiar with like complex systems theory and chaotic systems and non-equilibrium systems, that all kind of fits into this model. And in this paper, he talks about like the difference between logic and statistics and this sort of stochastic approach. So it gives you a little bit of background there as well. I think finally I'm going to finish up with this paper, Self-Organization in Natural Swarms of Photinus carolinus synchronous fireflies. And this is a paper that was, I think it's recent. It's a bioarchives preprint. It's very recent. So this is, so the abstract is fireflies flashing in unison is a mesmerizing manifestation of animal collective behavior and an archetype of biological synchrony. To elucidate synchronization mechanisms and inform theoretical models, we recorded the collective display of thousands of fireflies in natural swarms and provide the first spatiotemporal description of the onset of synchronization. At low firefly density, flashes appear uncorrelated. At high density, the swarm produces synchronous flashes within periodic bursts. Using three-dimensional reconstruction, we demonstrate that the flash bursts nucleate and propagate across the swarm in a relay-like process. Our results suggest the fireflies interact locally through a dynamic network of visual connections, defined by visual occlusion from terrain and vegetation. This model illuminates the importance of the environment in shaping self-organization and collective behavior. So we've talked about this, the stuff that Enkit was doing with respect to development of Bradenberg vehicles is one example of this, where we're looking at collective behavior based on a stimulus. In this case, they're looking at fireflies and how when they're out, in the summertime or whenever they're out. They're usually out around, July 4th in the U.S. and Canada, and they go out and they you see them for a while and then they disappear. And they have these little sacs of luciferase on their tail that flash. They luminesce, and this is a communication signal. So it's signaling other fireflies where they are, but also they can synchronize their these flashes, and they do this in a way that people have been fascinated by for a while. So there's been a lot of work on this. Steven Strogatz wrote a book called Sync about 20 years ago, and that book actually, one of the main themes is this idea of fireflies synchronizing their flashing, their bioluminescence. And so there are other systems that are bioluminescent that exhibit collective behavior. There are a number of marine organisms where this is the case, but fireflies are actually, I guess, somewhat easy to study. Although in this paper they find a way to study it and to get like some really good data on what this is. Now this is important also to neural systems, because this is actually very similar to how neurons synchronize in populations. So you can see that they've looked at firefly synchrony. It's been often been cited as the inspiration for the theoretical study of systems of coupled oscillators, such as the integrate and fire, the Winfrey, or the Kuramoto models. And so the Kuramoto model in particular is relevant to neural systems of neural populations of neurons. So even though synchronous fireflies are directly observable, the connection between theory and natural patterns has rarely been attempted rigorously. And so you need good spatiotemporal data for this. And so they're able to video record a bunch of fireflies in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park during peak mating season in June of 2020. The fireflies' primary natural habitat are the densely forested creeks of the Elkmont, Tennessee area of the park. So they were doing this out in nature, which is good. They took video of this. They were able to deconstruct the videos and get these frames and analyze the frames in using a mathematical model. So they're able to figure out the onset of these events. And again, this is something we could model with agent-based modeling system. But this is a good way to understand the onset of the synchrony, which is an important part of the process. And so they do a bunch of analysis here. They get into this burst propagation. The burst propagation suggests that the active fireflies interact with the swarm locally rather than globally. This is common and well documented in animal groups. Local interactions have been proposed to be either metric, where individuals interact with peers within a certain distance, or topological, where interactions occur through a set of nearest neighbors. In flocks, schools, and crowds, local interactions have been shown to result in a constant velocity, linear, undampened propagation of information. So this is where we know in this case, local interactions, you get this propagation of information, which is linear. It goes from individual to individual, sort of serially across the population. But what is remarkable within this swarm is that information propagation is linear only on average. So it's not like a constant linear process. It can go it can do a sweep through the population pretty quickly, or it can not propagate at all at certain times. But to average it out, it's a linear process. And this is true of a lot of complex systems where you get this average description. But then there's also a lot of dynamics within the group of things, and they exhibit these sort of emergent properties, which are, maybe nonlinear, highly nonlinear. Simultaneous flashes, even early and late ones, can be spatially distant. In other words, the distributions of these parameters are broad, in stark contrast to bird flocks or human crowds, where the time-distance relationship is very narrow. This suggests that local interactions may extend beyond each firefly's immediate geometric vicinity. So there are actually some interesting properties of firefly swarms that are very unique compared to humans or flocks of birds or things like that. So I think I'm going to finish this up by just saying that this is a very interesting paper. We should follow up on this paper, maybe in another meeting. And I think that if you have any comments on some of the stuff we've talked about today, we should definitely talk about it in Slack. So, did you have anything to add before we go, Jesse?
No, those are good papers. I want to look at them all, including the mathematics one. My only comment for that one was going to be I'd be curious if how they view some quantum related stuff in regard to the stochastic things as well. But I'll leave it at that. I know we're over. I'll check those papers, and I started taking some notes on. I'll do a simple Medium post to kind of recap the stuff here. I want to get back to that. Um, so yeah, but no, it's good. I think that's it. I was talking to. I did hear from Angela. She may not be able to do. Oh, we're just talking about Envision. She may not be able to come to Envision, which is kind of suck, but it's okay. But that's all my updates for this meeting.
Okay. Well, thanks for attending.